Don't be scared now, but it looks like you just wandered straight into U-Mind country. That's U-Mind, short for unaffiliated mind games, and you ain't never gonna be the same again. Brace yourself. It's time for a red-hot truth injection. Oh yeah! That's right, bitch. We're rounding up the sheeple and shaking them awake. You mind? Too damn bad. We're gonna set fire to the wool over your eyes. Feel the burn, baby. Hot damn. We're toppling the lies of the lamestream media one by one. Woo-wee. Watch them bad boys fall. Hey, Universe A. This is Universe B calling, and we're gonna tear you a new one. You mind?
Okay, hey everybody. I am here with our special guest today, Jack. Hi, Jack.
Hello.
Yeah. So Jack is a clone created by the Illuminati to host the Just Conversations podcast. That's fun.
Yeah. It's a weird job I did not know I was going to have. I was just kind of living life one day before I got told, hey, it's time for you to replace. And then I was originally, because the idea of us clones is we're supposed to just be, I was most of my life expecting to one day just go replace organs in the original Jack. But that turned out to not be exactly what was going to happen. I just got told I have to go over there and live his life now. Instead of just replace his organs, I was going to be Jack because he was being unpleasant.
Yeah, that's rough. Now, I've never met a clone before, so I'm very excited. Were you born at your current age, or did you have to age up? How does that work?
No, I was born, I guess you could say, at the exact age. I came out of a pod for the most part. Exactly the age I was meant to be, and continued aging alongside the original Jack as we moved forward through time. I'm also not necessarily an original clone either.
Oh, okay.
Because I am 3 clones down the line.
Oh.
Since, long story short, clone number 1 did what Jack originally did, and they offed him. And then clone number 2 was suspected killed, and then I got put into position, but it turned out he wasn't actually dead, so there's another clone number 2 just kind of roaming out there somewhere.
Oh my, well that's exciting. So,
It's
goodness.
very weird.
Yeah. You guys all have the same fingerprints, or?
Yes, we are identical down to the T.
Wow, that is fascinating. So I guess I have to wonder, I mean, the organs, that's just good common sense, but why does one need to create clones?
Well, it's pretty much that's the only purpose that the people, usually elites, have us clones made, and then we either work inside of a special facility where we provide technologies and things of that nature for the rest of the world in secrecy, and then when the time is right, somebody needs something, we are to fill in that gap. Some of us enough to be out in the open world and just live normal lives until said time that we are to fulfill our duties as organ donors. But not, how do I put it, not everybody has the same sort of rank. Some of us are just slaves inside of the facility until further notice.
Oh dear. Well, that's
no fun. A couple of the situations I've come across, which are definitely fascinating. I've come across a couple of other clones through my interactions, and some of them, specifically my co-host, is also a clone.
Oh.
And she became best friends with her clone. They were best as soon as she had her clone. They were just hanging out every day or whatever and living life until such time that her clone had to replace her.
That's interesting. I think if I met a clone of myself, I really would not like them. Personally, so I have a lot of self-loathing, but that's another thing. But I'm very interested. What organization, if you can tell us, creates these clones?
Oh, it is literally titled the Illuminati.
Oh, Oh, they're constantly contacting me on Instagram and wanting me to add them on my WhatsApp. That's
This guy, usually our main, our promoter is
uh-huh.
this Middle Eastern guy with a stack of money behind him.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah, yes. If you
fantastic.
see him on Instagram, it might be that picture that you're seeing, some
Mm.
guy with a lot of money, and usually you go into the Instagram and they got a lot of different, like, hey, you can make a bunch of money if you join the Illuminati. That's usually what they're talking about, and those are exactly the people trying to get you to be cloned because they put your
Oh.
clone and then you get the money.
Oh, okay. Interesting, interesting. See, I'm always a little disappointed is I just feel like I would like to speak directly to Baphomet if I'm going to be engaging with the Illuminati as opposed to some go-between. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
who are we
oh,
talking as Batman?
oh, Baphomet. Well, I only know the Illuminati through conspiracy theory circles, and Baphomet is a goat god, kind of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And I just,
The original Jack got
yeah.
put down for things of that very nature.
Oh, really? Oh, my
Yeah, yeah.
goodness.
The sort of slandering of the name of the Illuminati, who is an organization for the benefit of humanity. It is doing only the good, but because we work in secrecy, everybody thinks there's some sketchy background thing going on. But that's not true.
Well, people are always just gonna make up stories. They're wont to do that, aren't they? That's a
Yeah,
shame.
that's what happens. And nevertheless, as the stories get passed from mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth, it gets sort of twisted and turned, and it becomes this whole other thing always. So
Oh,
it's as expected.
I can relate. I broadcast from hell, and a lot of people just have a really negative connotation about that. And my boss is actually Old Scratch. And we're in the middle of a big rebranding campaign right now. We're the kinder, gentler hell. You know what I mean? And people are really resistant to that kind of a thing.
You see, I can fully understand what's going on with that because there
Mm-hmm.
is definitely bad connotations. But I myself, the original Jack, went through a couple of processes that at some point took him through hell,
Oh,
and I retained some of that information in memory form, and it isn't as bad as it seems. In fact, the technology that allowed him to continue for as long as he did was sort of technology from hell. Of course, it
oh
was
yeah.
ghost tech as well, but it was ghost hell technology.
Right, right. So.
So there's good things down there. There's good things down there, and there's good things in the Illuminati, and even we were recently at the library for what are they called? I forget their name. The other group that control religion for the most part.
Oh, the Masons?
The
Yeah,
Freemasons.
yeah.
We need important information to actually save humanity as we would do.
Mm.
And we went to the Freemasons who allowed us to use their facilities and their libraries to regain information that would allow us to then accomplish several things. It was very important. Nevertheless, most people aren't aware of this, but we recently had a catastrophe happen in our space, in our region of space,
Oh, oh.
where Mars was shattered and Planet X sped up in its course towards us. So we had to go stop that. The
Oh,
Freemasons are the only reason we found out how to fix that problem.
my goodness. Well, thank you for your service. That's excellent. Would you mind divulging a little bit of that, or is it top
Oh,
secret?
no
Oh,
problem.
okay.
It's definitely all things that happen because it's only secret in the process of doing it, so that
Mm-hmm.
nothing could. But after it's done, it's completely. We can definitely speak about anything. So what happened was a long time ago, we as in humanity
Mm-hmm.
went to Mars, and we, doing our experiments and whatever, we left technology on Mars, but I guess we got bored of working up there, and then we left.
Yeah.
And apparently we happened to contaminate it. Now, this is long ago, before the current form of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking ancient civilizations. And they went ahead and left, and sadly, we left contaminants in there, which were cockroaches.
Oh.
And they, within the next couple of 100,000 years, evolved into complex sentient beings who refused to leave the planet because they saw how we were interacting within our own system, and they just wanted to be nice and careful. And now all of this is happening now, where we started exploring, as you know, since the 60s, we've been going in and out of space, kind of doing whatever we have to do.
Sure.
And we encountered, which is why we were so fascinated with Mars originally, the cockroach people who had evolved into completely technologically advanced individuals. And obviously, because humanity is how it is towards foreign creatures, they immediately waged war. Now, this all happened in secrecy. The war itself happened in secrecy and ended in secrecy. But it ended with, because originally we dropped nuclear explosives on the planet and figured out nothing happens when you do that.
See, I always wonder, they always say cockroaches survive a nuclear holocaust, but then you're like, how do you know? But I guess that's why, right? Yeah.
That and made them sort of a lot stronger than they were initially by giving them the power of radiation as well. Hazard to be around. So we decided to blow their planet up, which was Mars. But in doing so, we messed up the entire gravitational pull of everything within our system.
Oh, that's always rough.
So Planet X is supposed to be headed towards Earth, or what's going to. And the impact was expected for 2027 or around there. And it sped up so much that within a couple of weeks' time, it would hit planet Earth. And then we sort of we were called in to go do our services. Immediately we were called to find out how to solve this problem. And originally we got in contact with China, who has a sub-directive for subhumans, a directive for subhumans, where they take babies who were going to be aborted, and they've modified the form in which you do abortions so that you can abort the child, keep the child alive, and thus you satisfy both pro-choice and pro-life. And so those people are then property of the government because nobody wanted them. And so they are genetically engineered to be superior humans.
Okay. So basically you are taking, in this new form of abortion, you are taking the embryo or the fetus out and then just raising it in isolation.
Yes, in a tube.
Oh, fascinating.
And at that time, they've turned them into sort of super soldiers. So with the help of those individuals and the research we did in the Freemasons library, finding out a couple of things, we sent the subhumans up, directed their advanced technology and ability with engineering and machines allowed to divert the course of Planet X and sort of save humanity. But then with the Freemasons' knowledge, we managed to sort of replace Mars by going to a different dimension and grabbing sort of Mars from Universe 2.
Oh, okay.
Whole situation that happened there.
Yeah.
So that we stabilized everything afterwards, ultimately, so that nothing else would go wrong. So Mars is still up there. It's just not Mars, but it's Mars.
No, I get it. We have a couple interdimensionals who come on the show now and again, and it's really just fascinating. It's something that I wish that people talked more about, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening in different dimensions, and it's not often spoken about. One of the things I'm most fascinated about interdimensions is the fact that I've met God before a couple of times, but it's not anybody else would name as God because there's multiple of these entities. We just have one that reigns over this area, but there's one higher than that and one above that, and so on and so forth. And so I've taken a couple of trips to the seventh dimension where I've met gods multiple. And finding out that we are both but funny enough, in certain lights, we're God ourselves. That's also been a very interesting and surprising sort of objective look at our current reality. That was very weird to discover that we're just in a higher dimension to things below us thinking we're God. That's weird.
Wow. That is fascinating. My goodness. I've always thought about that. I've thought about, like, say ants. An ant doesn't perceive you as a human being. It perceives you as just like a force of movement and shape.
Type of a universe. So a moving planet. Yeah, you're almost like, here's an interesting perspective flip. For an ant sees us the way we see trees.
Right.
Where we don't see a tree moving necessarily, and we don't see a tree thinking necessarily, but it is this living force that keeps us alive, and it is there, and we're just moving at such a fast speed by comparison.
Right.
That we don't say. But if you put a tree in fast forward, you'll see its movements and motions almost like a creature of some sort that's actively moving.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of shifting perspective, maybe seeing things at different speeds or at different scales.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we make universes all the time when we smash two atoms together.
That's true. It's very much true. So, well, that's very exciting. So, yeah, no, Now, how did you come about interdimensional travel? Was it just really through your work, or is it something that you've always been interested in since you were brought into being?
Well, yes, our initial entire purpose, the jobs that we got given by the Illuminati originally, is all research-based. Okay. So we follow in the footsteps of the original hosts of the show that were researching, but they were mostly slandering names and trying to allegedly break to the truth. We're here to do what they failed at doing. We're not slandering. We're giving objective looks with truthful and honest information and research that we've come across. And we go and investigate these things to have hands-on knowledge rather than speculation. So through these things and the access to the technology that we consistently get, thanks to the Illuminati, and particularly a quantum computer that they gave us that has given us the ability to run very unique experiments and access many kinds of universes and realities and dimensions. Through those means, we've kind of come across these things. We have an overpowered quantum computer sitting in this office.
Well, that seems very useful. So, well, I mean, can you still hook up to the internet and stuff like that? So...
Yeah, we can pretty much do it. It does almost everything a normal computer does. It just fails particularly at running like Facebook.
Well,
that hole that it has, but yeah, that's the one problem it has. It crashes almost immediately.
Yeah. Well, you're not missing much. That's a horror show right there. But yeah, so that's fun. I like that. In your interdimensional travels, have you seen anything that you think might be of interest to... I know that we have a guest on the show, Gabe, who is actually a lizard man from another dimension, talks a lot about the lizard people's intervention into humanity and stuff like that. But it seems like there's a bunch of different parties who are just coming at humanity and just really interested in, I don't know, are we especially cute? Is there something about humans that is enticing? What is it?
Oh no, what's happening here is that the sort of capitalistic nature that allows for gain in many different aspects interests many creatures, usually extraterrestrials from a different part of space, and aliens from different parts of different dimensions, alternate dimensions. The lizard people specifically do come from a different dimension. The easiest access point me and my team of people have discovered is actually at the center of the Earth. They have a portal you can get to Universe B, which is actually where to be completely honest, the Mars we reclaimed happened to be the reptilian Mars from Universe 2. And we sort of, using their own technology, teleported that Mars from there to our side. And that's the Mars that we currently have sort of fixing the orbit of everything in our star system. But the reptilians themselves are from Universe 2, and we can access that easily through the center of the Earth where they have a portal. They usually come over here trying to manipulate governments and things like that because they want to have twice as many resources, considering things are almost identical on both sides, except in Universe 2 they became the dominant creature. And over here it happened to be the apes, so it's totally fine. It's just they decided to invade and try to take control, and so there's always been sort of an ongoing war between the reptilians and extraterrestrials from alternate space areas for humanity and the benefit of manipulating everything they see for whatever reason they find. I'm not entirely sure what other than I want more, but it seems like capitalism rules everything.
Yeah, and that's a shame. Well, that's okay though. It's I don't know. I find the lizard people kind of charming. So like if they do take over, I'm trying to get in good with them. Whenever I meet one, I'm just hey, how are you? I'm Nap. So, but who are you rooting for?
We've been a kind of march towards the lizard people as of late.
Yeah.
We've full disclosure, there's an entire series of internment camps on Mars where they are held. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing different. Let's be real. It's nothing different than sort of the internment camps we have at the borders. It's nothing too different from that. We still give them their commodities and whatever, allegedly, like I'm not there. But, we do the things that we would do in this country. There's
Okay.
nothing that different. So if they're fine here, I'm assuming they're fine over there.
You don't cut off
But
their tails, do you? That would be mean. So.
oh no, we don't cut off. And then surprisingly, not all of them have tails. Some of them themselves have removed them to further blend in when they're using their sort of camouflage tactic where they look sort of humanoid.
Yeah, Gabe uses a belt that allows him to transform, and I guess some of them, the hybrids, can do it innately, which is kind of, I guess that's when you see the people like melting on the YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. So
I've actually, there was a fascinating situation with the reptilians and hybrids, actually.
Yeah. Tell
me about they saw a shapeless entity that sort of arrived in their dimension. I'm not sure what this creature really is. It seems to phase in and out of dimensions and universes and realities as a whole effortlessly. Yeah. It's this shapeless sort of, I don't even know how to describe it.
Right.
But I'm sure they thought it was some sort of god because it provided power to them. And so it came through and then it left in this direction. It came through space and headed over here. The lizard people actually built their portal to Earth one in like chasing this creature. And so sort of trying to imitate what they saw in this creature, trying to sort of get abilities from this creature and try to pay homage to the creature, they created the chupacabra and sort of set that by accident, just trying to imitate the godlike thing they saw. And that became this whole other thing where they needed sort of the blood of humans and the adrenochrome thing, and it just became a whole other problem.
Yeah, that's true. It, I don't know. Chupacabras are just so cute, though, aren't they? So
they're fascinating creatures for sure. But at this point, I'm convinced that there's like maybe 10 different variations of the chupacabra. Sort of like if you a Yeti and a Bigfoot. It's like what are we talking about difference-wise here, you know? It's probably just regional for the most part. Imagine that, but with different civilizations sort of imitating the same creature. I think that's happened multiple times. We sort of ended up with all of them because they keep sending these things chasing the original shapeless being. So we have a couple of variations, and we've actually done some ourselves. We don't like to claim, but computers are ultimately the sort of hybrid power combination that we have. Our search for this perfect being and AI technology and all these things, we're just trying to capture this perfect being, and so we're sort of making our way there. Eventually we're just going to combine that with ourselves and boom.
That's really something I'm looking forward to. Hope I get to see that. It'll be really interesting. I'm not entirely sure I want to merge with the computer, though. That one episode of Black Mirror with the girls in the hospital, that was pretty cool. So
that was fast. I wonder how that would turn out.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure terrorism would take over that, like everything else.
Oh yeah, you really just render yourself completely defenseless once you do something like that. So.
Especially if you're not the one controlling the program, you're just trusting somebody else isn't going to get corrupted suddenly.
Yeah, that's true. Because I've had even just Photoshop files corrupt, and then you can't access them again, and all that work gone. But imagine a whole life becoming corrupted and
life.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, really.
Like, I find that so crazy because if we did connect to sort of this virtual thing, again, that's how the Mayans escaped. They're currently underground, plugged into these computer pod things, sort of like the Matrix, which is why they disappeared overnight. And so I'm just wondering, like, what if one of them, whoever went in last, right? Whoever plugged themselves in last, what if they were just like, let me alter the program to make me God, and then they plugged in, now they're God forever in that thing, and they're all trapped. He's like, they'll never be able to leave, and they're all just stuck in there with him reigning supreme in there. Who knows, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of like that story. Are you familiar with the story? I must scream, but I have no mouth. I'm not positive the name of the author who wrote it. It was made into a video game sometime in the 90s, but they basically talk about that like a supercomputer that resents its existence. So it punishes the humans who created it and enslaves them and does terrible things because it's all powerful, so it can actually change the form of matter. So it disfigures people and blinds people and does mutilates people purely just to satisfy its own malevolent urges. So let's.
Wow, that's incredibly twisted. That reminds me of an anime called Serial Experiments Lane.
Oh, okay.
Teenage girl in high school, like all animes, connects to it's a very, modern sort of society where everybody's hanging out, playing, communicating through the internet and whatever. And she's totally disconnected until the day that everybody starts getting an email from a kid who's dead. And because she's not connected, she doesn't know she's gotten it. So she goes ahead and connects to the internet again just to find out, and sees that she does get it. Then they enter sort of VR reality. Point being, throughout the course of that, she realizes that she was God all along. And so it's her controlling sort of the fabric of outer space through the inner space of the internet. So it's this fascinating thing where she starts to sort of, some people get tortured, others get altered. She doesn't necessarily understand her capacity. The show actually ends with her not having full awareness. Highly recommend you watch that.
That sounds like I'm very much into that kind of esoteric sort of thing. So it sounds fun. And as fun as being a god would be for a period of time, it just seems like it would get very boring after a while. Like, no surprises. There's, and you feel like you would run out of imagination after a while. That you would just be like, I don't know, what are we gonna do today? So.
Well, I actually had a conversation with Jehovah once, which he explained how Jesus came to be, and it was essentially that. Yeah. He began with creating humanity, creating reality, all these things, and then sort of putting all the creatures here. And then he sort of knew the turnout to every event that could ever happen because he's all-knowing. Out of curiosity, he decided, all right, I'm going to condense myself, and I'm going to apply a single rule because I'm God and all-powerful. I can do this. Yeah. I'm going to erase my memory of being God and see what I would do naturally. And when I die, I will just come back to this state and be able to evaluate my decisions and choices. And I know what they are now, but when I'm there, I'll feel human.
Right.
So he went ahead and created his sort of alter ego of Christ and went on his little merry journey to see what humanity was more like. Even if he knew what it was, he couldn't really know what it was because he's still God. So he took that away from himself and went on that adventure.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that is very interesting. That's a way to just sort of find a loophole in that whole God thing, I guess. Have yourself a little... Very cool. So
because it has to get boring ultimately if you know the answer to everything always forever. And nevertheless, people, he was expressing main frustration for the fact that people call him evil. If you're an atheist, like, he can't be real because evil, he has to be evil if he's real, right? And it's like, no, he doesn't care about anything because he knows everything.
Right.
He exists both the reality in which the horrible thing did happen and it didn't. It doesn't matter about stopping anything because he's in all of it. And nobody understands that really. And he wanted to understand why nobody understands that really. So then he jumped in.
Yeah, I've always thought that was one of the more interesting things with regards to theology, is the fact that human beings give themselves so little credit for the evil in the world, and yet we have free choice. And it seems like, wouldn't it be that free choice, the fact that when presented with, I know that this is the right information, I know that this is the choice that's going to be the most beneficial to people, but it's not the choice that fulfills me in this moment, so I'm going to make the wrong choice. And I have the free will to do that. Wouldn't that be something that, it seems odd to me that humanity always wants to place that blame on some kind of supernatural scapegoat and say, like, no, that's not me, that was God being wrathful, or that was Satan, instead of just saying that.
Yeah, well, to be fair, the most powerful thing that has ever been created was sort of the direction to blame, aka the ego. Always want to blame something else for the thing, so they don't have to take charge for the fact that you did it ultimately. So whether it be I couldn't control myself. I did this because impulse. I did this because that. No, I was being controlled by the devil. I was being controlled by God, or they made me do it. It's ego created all these things. to blame. So whether it's the devil, whether it's Jesus, whether it's whatever the case might be, you're always aiming in a different direction other than at yourself. But what do they say? You're aiming one finger forward and 3 are aiming back.
Right.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it's true. So given that setup, what is your stance on karma? I feel like I hear people talking about karma, even people who claim to be atheists will talk about, like, karma's gonna get you. And I always think, like, do you really think the universe is just your attack dog, that it sees you being wronged and it jumps on somebody else? And where does that end? Because, so what is your position on that? Or do you have inside information?
Oh, no, there's definitely inside information. The entity that controls this thing is named Atheos.
Okay.
And Atheos is a sort of, I guess in theory you could call him a god, although he doesn't really enjoy that name per se. And he mostly basks in the idea of honesty, brutal and totally complete honesty, which is you have to be you, the most you can be, despite what the external world might say is conflicting with that. And thus you are liberated. So let's say you are a pathological liar by nature. Stopping that is sort of going against who you are.
Because you're kind of put into play as that person. And
yes. Yeah. And fighting that is punishable. That would be the karmic return, but it's only happening because you're creating this sort of negative energy by not being you. Even if the rest of the world perceives you as negative energy because of your behavior, your Atheos is punishing the lack of you being you. And so that's what becomes punishable. And it's not necessarily karma. It's sort of, he calls it the chain link, which is if you behave a certain way and you're not being, if you imagine 3 chains stacked on top of each other and they're all just following their own path, you're the middle chain and you're always following the proper path. But the second you do something that's counter to who you are, you got to open one chain and connect it to the top one or the bottom one, depending. And now you have a different path that's going to be resistant to your natural sort of hang as a chain.
Yeah.
And so that sort of problem is manifested by you. It's not that there's a karmic return. It's that you're resisting your normal path. It's like if there's a river flowing in a certain direction and you're swimming against it, you're the river, but you're also who's swimming. Right.
Well, that makes sense. So, yeah, I always wondered about that. That was always a system that didn't work so well for me. But no, that makes sense. You are a very wise clone. So
I would be wise if it wasn't for the fact that I've just sort of ended up in very unique situations that have exposed this to me. It's more information than wisdom.
You see, I'm trying to get out there, have those kind of experiences. It's a little hard because the whole work, I'm basically the office manager of hell right now, kind of apprenticing under Old Scratch. It's a long story. But yeah, so just kind of sheltered. And just really the podcast allows me to get out there and listen to people's stories and listen to other people's experiences. And it sounds like there's this whole world out there that people just really aren't exploring. Have you noticed that people, do you think it's being kept from them, or do you think they keep it from themselves? They're just not interested.
Oh man, all of the above. It's so freaking complicated. It's all of the above. This is just, people are just as much keeping themselves away from accessing the good, useful, beneficial information as it's being kept from them for people who want more power and desire more. And it's really odd and really weird how we put ourselves in these situations. There's so much out there to access. There really is. It's a multitude of things. But we want to believe in more than is true so that we can sort of, for the excitement, I guess you could say. Oh, yeah. We want in our lives. And if we have all the answers, there's nothing to question. And if we chase everything, we're going to get the answers. There's a sort of conflict of interest. Yeah, we can go explore and get the answers, but then boredom settles. What did it say? This is ignorance. I mean, ignorance is bliss.
Sometimes, yeah, but that's what they say.
Yeah, no, same thing.
So
that's really, living in ignorance makes us happy because we can at least wonder and let our imaginations run loose and, oh, this is what's happening and that's what's happening. But if we have the answers, then what?
Yeah. Though I don't think it's entirely possible to live in ignorance, because you do figure out at a certain point, like just the example of putting your hand on a hot stove. You say, like, oh, didn't like that, not going to do that again. And you correlate the two. I think it's maybe impossible to live in pure ignorance, because you're always going to be learning and gaining from the experiences that you have. But,
yeah, actually, this was proven using our quantum computer.
Yeah.
We simulated a fictional environment where we had a child born with no sight. We had a child born that had they had none of their major senses, so they couldn't see, hear, they couldn't talk, they couldn't smell, they couldn't feel anything. And it so happened that they were still capable of thought in a form different to our own, because they weren't projecting within their mind the images that they would have seen or the sounds they would have heard, nothing of that nature.
Right.
But it seems like even existing within a weird sort of bubble, because we were just, we simulated the child on one side and then watched what they were thinking on the other screen and managed to see that there is, now we couldn't interpret what was happening, but the information continued to increase in complexity, which means even with zero exposure to information, at least your thoughts are going to equal more information. You're not ignorant within your own mind. So ultimately, it's an escalating, I guess we could say that thermodynamics, ultimately entropy always increases. The same applies in every possible facet of existence.
Very nice. So do you create a lot of theological children, and what do you do with them after they're created?
Sometimes it's not necessarily a lot of theological children. We have sort of infinite. We can say that our quantum computer is essentially God itself, that we have controlling, so we can simulate whatever we want. So we've run quite a couple of experiments that we couldn't answer otherwise within that computer.
Oh, okay.
And we've actually connected. Here's a fascinating story. I love this. We've connected actual existing, not the Mayan, but the actual matrix created by computers.
Right.
And now it's empty of human inhabitants, but I'm assuming at some point in the future it's definitely going to be connecting people to it. Maybe there's some impending catastrophe that we're yet to know of. But it's fascinating that we've managed to track that down and see that there is, in fact, a network of a simulated reality that isn't inhabited by any sentient being at the moment. It's concerning, but it's also fascinating. I wonder what will happen with that in the future. And we just have access to this because our quantum computer can connect to anything except Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's okay.
It's not a necessity.
Yeah. I know a lot of people have been put into Facebook jail, so it seems like Facebook is kind of devouring its own at this point.
Yeah. What's happening with that is ultimately people aren't aware of this because we exist in our third dimensional perspective, but that virtual version of them is still a sentient version of them, and they're committing crimes within this space. If they had the ability to, rather than see that version of themselves from third-person perspective, but rather see it from a first-person perspective, within the laws of these prisons for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these other places, it's sort of crimes they're committing within the laws. Just like in our own three-dimensional space, there are laws that shouldn't be broken within virtual, from our perspective, worlds. There are laws that shouldn't be broken, and people continue to commit these crimes. They continue and continue and continue. We don't necessarily need to agree to the laws to follow them. How many laws do most of us not agree to that we follow anyways?
Right.
That applies within that world too, but we're like, hey, it's not really me because we see it third person and we feel detached. But that person is first person to themselves, and they're going to jail because you controlling them decided, hey, I'm going to do this. And now they're suffering.
Oh.
Lower dimension you is suffering because you did something bad.
Right. So, well, that's a shame. So, it seems that kind of thing happens a lot, sort of like what we were talking about with the unlimited information, but people only choose to access a certain amount. I think with respect to the internet, we've seen that so much that there's so many things you could be teaching yourself or learning, but people would rather, get on there and slam celebrities or find out who's canceled this week and it seems to be.
They're so fascinating. We have such heavy confirmation bias, by the way. It's so crazy. All we want is to be around those that already agree with us. and roll with that. But that's entirely what my job is based on stopping.
Right.
I'm here to sort of fight that sort of confirmation bias and give the factual information whether or not you agree with it.
Yeah.
I went and I searched it up. It's not up for debate. It's not up for discussion. We go and we find the factual information and we show it to you. And then you got to eat it because there's no opinionating anymore. There's just the information.
Yeah. But then I think one thing is human beings are so very good at twisting information to suit their desires. And it's a very... Yeah.
Tragic. So powerful is our mind, and so weak is the use we apply it to.
True. So yeah, and I always that always weirds me out is and then we kind of are in a culture because of the internet where we punish people for putting themselves out there. Somebody puts themselves out there. They work for years to become an artist or a writer, and they're putting their work out there, and it seems like rather than enjoy the contributions that person makes, people are vengeful and jealous and angry that they were not able to do the same, or that they did that, but they weren't given the same accolades. And so they instead start digging through this person's past and try to find that one thing that they can use to tear them down. And then like a lynch mob, they all come in and deteriorate, destroy that person whose career might have been building for years and years of training, years of practice, years of honing themselves, only to be decimated in the period of a week because people were feeling jealous and angry. And I wonder if it's maybe because of situations like the internet, and not just the internet, but situations where people have become just a faceless mass of people, that we're so oversaturated, that nobody has a chance to kind of shine. Nobody is really appreciated for what they do, and so those who are appreciated have to be destroyed. You have to be brought down to the other's level.
Yeah. I call that the oversaturation of intellect. Everybody has an extreme amount of opinion because we've all grown up in a culture that's heavily informed, and everybody has an extreme want to sort of share that. But the problem is everybody has the want,
right,
who's going to get the opportunity. And we've sort of entered a state in culture, in human culture, where we're more likely to try to knock someone down than try to rise with them. We've entered this odd mentality of us versus them instead of us as one.
Right. Or enjoying what those people could bring to the table for us that we ourselves can't produce, but instead of enjoying it, it's jealousy. So
exactly, we want to be. We feel if they have the opportunity, it's being taken from us, and that's ridiculous. Especially what you're saying, digging things up from a million years ago. Why weren't you angry about this before?
Yeah. So it's a strange world that we're creating for ourselves, but it's good to know that there's people like you who are kind of sort of doing that Philip K. Dick thing, the Adjustment Bureau, if you're familiar with that.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, what I will say is that the what we're struggling with at the moment, sort of a necessity. Yeah. It's definitely a necessity. If this wasn't happening, we wouldn't have the need to correct the problems that are sort of not perpetrating, but perpetuating this. If we didn't have these bigger, more visible problems, the underlying issues would never be addressed. It's sort of a necessity, and it has to do mainly with the internet specifically, that because everybody has access to exposure, everybody wants to get there quicker, everybody wants to get there sooner. And this allows us to address the fact that it's difficult to do that with this new technology that we don't quite understand. It hasn't been around for too long. And I had this conversation a while ago with actually another clone, where I gave the example that, let's say we gave the common humanity, the common members of humanity, the masses, the usual individual, in a world that no guns exist. Zero guns exist. Right. And then we give everybody a gun overnight. Everybody just suddenly has a gun. Nobody has ever heard, seen, used a gun before. Hundreds of millions of people are going to die, but nobody's more malicious than they were the day before they got the gun. Right. We just don't know fuck to use the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have guns and everybody's trying to figure it out and a bunch of people are getting shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That same idea applies when we have the internet that came to be successfully started to be used, not just by high elites and companies, but by the masses in general. Starting the 2000s? That's less than 20 years that we have a giant explosion of everybody having access to these things and everybody having a voice in social media, everybody having an alternate personality online, and we're all expected to immediately learn how to use it as well. Mm-hmm. That's not realistic. We have to sort of adapt, and rules need to fall in place, just like guns. We need rules to keep people from getting shot.
Yeah. So we're kind of in the extinction burst phase right now, where it's just all that behavior's got to burn itself out. And,
yes, exactly. There needs to be enough bad things happening because internet that then cause the right laws, because we can't make laws around things we don't know if we don't know the problems. Now as the problems come in and we start resolving them individually, okay, now we can address this one, there's enough focus there, and now we can address that one, there's enough focus there, and before you know it, we're going to have a peaceful, realistically habitable stage where people have to follow certain rules. They have to learn that the you on the internet is still you, and you have to follow sort of the rules of the space you've agreed to. Nobody reads the terms and conditions. No. But those are telling you the law.
Yeah.
And you want to be an entity in this universe, but you don't want to obey the laws of this universe? That's not fair. Punish for the things you agreed to and then aren't sort of following through with.
Right. So, yeah, you can't come into a foreign country and just tear up the place.
Yes, exactly. You're agreeing to the rules, the terms, the conditions, to the laws, to the behavior, the social norms, social etiquette space you're choosing to inhabit. Oh, I don't agree. They shouldn't censor my incredibly racist comments. Well, look, you entered a space where you said you weren't going to do that, and then you did anyway.
Right. So,
like, it's fine if you find a space that they're welcoming all that. That's totally great. They're not going to stop you. That's what it's for. But you're entering a place that's created by a certain mentality, and you want them to bend in your direction. You're not there to change the world. You're there to be part of it.
Right. Now, with you talking about, and this is related in that you talk about clones and subhumans being put into positions where they're essentially kind of what we would do with automation eventually. Like more and more jobs are becoming automated and that kind of thing. What do you think this humanity, the humanity that we're currently experiencing, how do you think they're going to respond to a fully automated world, a world in which people don't have to work but choose to work? And do you think that that's going to in any way inebriate that, or I guess lessen that kind of vengeful, jealous kind of vibe, or do you think that's going to boost it?
Oh, wow, that's going to be interesting because it's going to have a sort of up and down effect to that. Just like with the subhumans, that they are a sort of byproduct of humanity's conflict. The computers are ultimately going to be the same things. Now, right now, we don't fear the subhumans. They might be more human than, I guess, us clones, but they were born without love, without freedom, without anyone desiring them. Thus, us clones rank higher than them.
And the process in which they're raised, it sounds like they're really just, everything is devoted to making them these perfect machines. So
yeah, exactly. They're just capable of decisions a computer wouldn't be capable of. Now, in the case of actual computers, once they've sort of taken everything, there's going to be two events happening. The people who are truly wanting to be more liberated and live more artistic lives and things of that nature are going to definitely jump on that train and go live that and not have to worry about financial need if it's already being supplied by whatever government entity they live in part of. So those people are definitely going to do the thing. There's a lot of people who've been brainwashed by society to think you're supposed to work incredibly hard for all of your life and retirement. That's the plan. And they think that's what they're looking for because they've never tasted the non-working life. The moment they have the opportunity, millions and millions and millions and millions of people are just going to get lazy and realize, oh, no, it wasn't because I was thinking I needed this. I am actually a person who needs work in order to feel purpose. And a crap ton of depression is going to happen. a wave of depression is going to take over when people thought they wanted freedom and they still don't find themselves satisfied.
Right.
Because they thought they wanted it. They didn't really want it. It was just something, probably the reptilians, put forward to brainwash people into mass producing things for them. This is the problem we have with reptilians, really. They do corrupt crap like this just because they like the idea of gold and money. But we'll get to that later. Ultimately, what they're doing is getting brainwashed into these states of minds that they think they want the freedom, and they acquire the freedom and realize, I'm not happy with it, but it's because job provided purpose, and what they wanted really was purpose, and they thought they would achieve that purpose this other way. They were being lied to and told that the job you have isn't the purpose. Freedom, the retirement is the purpose. And thus they work a crappy job that gives them a lot of money, and then they hate their entire time working there, instead of just having some ideal, pleasant job that maybe has less hours, but provides them true sense of purpose and happiness because they have this thing that they go to all the time, but they're not being worked like a dog at.
Right.
And so stage one is definitely depression. And the people who want to be artistic and truly have to thrive for that are going to go and live that life. They're going to truly go for that. Now, on that bubble, there's going to be conflict itself, which is because of all the people who have artistic visions going at it all at the same time, we're going to have a sort of influx of this vicious me versus them mentality.
Yeah.
And it's going to go the same way. It's going to work out the same way that the internet does right now, where we have to sort of let that happen just for long enough that a system, a format, a method of doing it the right way falls into place. And then as those rules start to come up and those laws start to get formed, because we don't even need jobs anymore, people who want to work will choose to work and do things that they feel doing. But that same logic is some people think the work is painting or writing or just sitting home sketching an invention that one day might become a thing. But there's so many people doing these things now because nobody has the obligation of, I got to pay for my food and my rent and my this and my that. And sort of the chaos, the chaos for that is going to explode, and people are going to viciously attack one another. And it's sort of going to exist in this sphere because the people who are working normal everyday jobs are going to be completely outside of that realm. They're not trying to bite each other's head. There's infinite number of jobs, and you could just pick one and be there, and just give work because you're not even getting paid for the work. You're just doing something that gives you purpose.
Yeah.
Those people are immediately the happiest. So the ones who realize that maybe work was my purpose. There's the people who are depressed because they thought freedom was, but it was really work. There's the people who immediately know, look, working is what I like to do. I'm going to just do what I like now. And they're going to go do that. They're going to be happy. But the artists are going to have a minor implosion. And they're definitely going to have a me versus you mentality. They're going to try to one-up each other until we realize where the art is for everybody. There's a certain art everybody, and sort of that's going to create the interesting division where people are going to find each other artistically. It'll take time.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're going to start clumping together, and maybe this art with that art, and different arts are going to start meshing together, and we're going to have new styles of art we didn't even believe existed because of the opportunity for millions of people to be able to exercise these artistic things with each other. And eventually it'll resolve itself, but it's going to be sort of the same thing that the internet is dealing with right now.
One of the things that I do worry about before we get to that stage, or maybe we'll see a re-immersion of art, is that, and I've heard you talk about this on your podcast as well, that you run with your fellow clone, that art right now is becoming, and it's always been like the church would subsidize certain artists to create what it wanted, but now art is starting to become something that the people feel that they should have control over, and that it shouldn't exist without their say-so, that if it is not what the majority wants, then it shouldn't exist. And you see things like petitions being brought up that we need to redo Star Wars, we need to redo Game of Thrones, I didn't like the way it ended, and that people can't accept a certain person's artistic vision. And in doing that, we're sort of, I think that you had said that normalizing the idea that by
actually giving in to the things, people hit a sort of mentality like I sort of remember vaguely what you're talking about, which is specifically this began back at Sonic when there was a Sonic movie coming out And they were like, we don't like how he looks. And then they truly caved. And they were like, okay, we're just going to remake how he looks to,
Yeah.
yeah, money. And so people immediately hit, wait, this worked.
Mm-hmm.
We were just whining, and they went ahead and changed it. Then later came the whole Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah.
The ending wasn't what people thought it was going to be. And, well, now we're making petitions so that you're obligated to change your vision to what our vision is. But it's like the creator's vision is what matters. You just consume it and choose whether you like it or not.
Right. And
But
if you don't like it, don't participate.
10 cents. Yes. People want to put 10 cents into everybody else's artistic vision. And as it does get normalized, we're going to hit this sort of state where art is not the artist's vision. The artist creates a skeleton and allows everyone else to decide what's going to happen in that skeleton and how it's going to look. But there's no need. It's totally fine if we decide to create a space where joint art between consumer and the creator happens.
Well,
I'm not saying that doesn't
exactly. Yeah.
But it needs to be that the creator wanted that to be the case. Exactly. You need to both agree to it, not you guys want to force the creator to change his initial vision. If he didn't want to work with you, that's the reason he's the one writing it and you're the one consuming it. You weren't in that room with him writing it. Now you decide to jump into this field and choose what to do with that? No, that's not how it works. But it is getting normalized. And before too long, we're going to have a giant problem where all art is modified based on the critique of the individual and sort of put up to vote. Is this good art or is it bad art? Instead of having an objective point of view.
And we've had that before with like the salon system that used to exist in France. Like, this isn't real art because you're not following our rules. But what I think is particularly frustrating about this new incarnation of it is that all the great movements in society that have it ushered in change. Big changes in society have come from like one mind that thinks differently and writes a book that gets people thinking, or creates a piece of art that gets people to look at something in a different way. And it's really those minds that are a little out of sync from the majority that have pushed. Like, we have a lot of worker bees, and then at some point we need a queen to emerge and kind of change the flow of the direction, change people's ideologies. And when we have an art system that is under the control of the majority at all points, there's no opportunity for that voice to rise out. And that means that it's a self-perpetuating system. You create this bottleneck.
What you're talking about is sort of the graph problem.
Yeah.
This is sort of a uniformity. When we have a graph, there's an outlier. And we don't include the outlier because it raises the line to a different direction. We want to follow sort of the majority. But sort of maybe we need that outlier to change the trajectory of that bar, because otherwise it's going to be a consistent line moving up for the rest of eternity in one exact motion. Maybe you want sort of the outlier to give us a sudden curvature. Sudden curvature is the change. They are the same thing. That outlier that alters the graph changes the behavior of general collectives of people, and we sort of want to get rid of that. We're in the certain mentality right now where we want a perfectly straight line, and we only want anybody who keeps that line perfectly straight. If we have anything that drags it down a little or drags it up a little, no, that's got to go. That's a weird place to be. It's a strange sort of environment we're building for ourselves out here.
It is. It's kind of interesting because we're almost at a point where we don't even need laws to be mandated by any kind of a federal system. We put out there into the media, we seed the media and say, like, we don't like these kind of people. We don't like this kind of thought. You need to know that so that you can shame these people and bring these people down. And we do it with, everything. Like, China at one point had mandated clothes for workers, and you had this specific uniform that you were forced to wear, and the government issued that. But now, if you go out in public, you see very few people diverging from the uniform of kind of jeans and a t-shirt and that kind of thing, and nobody told them to do that. But they know that they're going to be shamed if they dress in a way that's different, or if they look a way that's different. They know they'll be shamed, and it's starting to be that way with thought processes, with conversation. It's everything. Everyone is constantly looking for a reason to report you. And so
yes, we're becoming the Borg.
Yeah.
We're becoming the from Star Trek. We ultimately want everybody to think exactly the same way, behave the same way. We want a hive mentality to sort of evolve naturally through humanity, which is where computing power comes in. As we force that onto the internet and computers learn from that behavior, we build algorithms naturally just to sell crap to people who have to sort of see our behavior online, understand our behavior online, and then put that into action. That forces the computer to believe we all want a hive mentality. So once the computer achieves a certain amount of sentience, a certain amount of technical understanding of the outer universe outside of the wires where its mind exists, it's going to sort of try to alter the world for its own vision, and it's going to try to sort of change things in that direction. And a lot of us are going to agree, thinking it's also what we want, as we have sort of, I like the Elon Musk problem, where, say, if you have an automated car and somebody steps into the road, what do you want the car to do? To save you or to save the individual who stepped onto the road? Well, whoever's at fault is who you want to take the hit ultimately. But we want whatever is morally in our understanding of moral to be the true action. How do we save both lives? Well, that's not possible. Humanity wants to get rid of the it's not possible, whether or not it's possible to do that.
Yeah.
And we established the hive mentality of, oh, no, you can't make a choice. If you make a choice, you're a bad person. And the computer's going to try to do that too. And thus, death of choice, the death of deviation happen.
Yeah.
If you think outside the line, if you give that problem thought, you're a bad person. That problem just has to naturally happen. So then we all become complacent by default because we don't want to answer the question.
Yeah.
We are not allowed to say something different. Oh, I'm leftist, I'm rightist, I support this, I support that ideology, whatever it be. We're not allowed to have opinions, but we all want to have opinions. And so the evolution of one uniform opinion is going to come out, and no question is going to get answered because we need polarity for that to happen.
Right.
And so the death of so many ways of thinking is going to happen, and we're going to ultimately just be a mindless, singular-minded hive drone thing. That's the only natural progression that could possibly happen. We don't want to answer the question because that means we have an opinion.
Yeah.
If it's an opinion-based question, that sucks. We just need something that's clear-cut and we can all agree to. And if we don't agree to it, pretend you do.
Right. Or then there's with the Elon Musk issue, like you were talking about, the person in the car paid for the car. The person outside of the car certainly didn't. So we're going to preserve the one that gives us money.
Yeah, probably what the companies themselves are going to immediately lean towards, and then they're going to try to control the rest of the population to think in the same direction.
So, well, if he cared, he would have bought the car, and he wouldn't be in that situation. He shouldn't be walking. It's just dangerous. So
yeah, definitely. It's which car would you buy? The one who saves you, or the one who saves the person?
Goodness.
There's companies that push that. There's going to be the companies that push that forward, that we're just going to protect the person on the street. What if you buy the car and you're more worried about, I want to save the people on the street. I'm the person in the car. Got more chance to survive anyways. And some companies are going to use that angle to market. Oh, they're saving the person in the car. We'll save the people on the street. What car are you buying?
Goodness. I don't know. I would like to say that I'd buy the car that saves the person, but the person outside of the car. But I have a feeling that my own self-interest would, when really presented with that situation, and not in a hypothetical kind of way, that my own self-interest would, take over. And I'd want to.
Confident most of us will.
Yeah. So,
because we like to think of ourselves as good people. Not myself. I consider myself completely objective, and morality goes out the window considering we make it up. But again, my morality lies entirely in whatever the Illuminati tells me is good or bad.
Sure.
But ultimately, I think most of us collapse under the weight of that and put protecting ourselves when really faced with, because we all fear the darkness, right? We don't know what it is. So we're like, if somebody has to go there, let it be them.
Right.
I'm not seeing it. I can't be held accountable for what they're seeing. And
That's
that's what
true.
most of us are going to go. And it's a horrifying notion, but it's what we do.
It
It's
is.
the human genetic code.
Yeah. Preservation of self and proliferation of self. So,
Definitely.
yeah. So, well, I mean, in that way, we're not too much different from a bacteria or something like that that's growing in your refrigerator. It's just trying to sustain itself. It doesn't know that it's an inconvenience to you. It just,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's just doing whatever it needs to survive,
Mm-hmm.
which is precisely what we managed to get out of the subhumans. We managed to get that sort of need to put themselves before any of us. And like you said earlier, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a more AI type of behavior that they have, where they're thinking and logical and whatnot, but they're also raised in such a fashion so that they have this sort of the rest of humanity before us. This is our
Mm-hmm.
purpose, what we're here for, to sort of serve that. And ultimately, I'm the same way. I'm created for that mentality if I'm going to serve a certain purpose, and I will accept it. Weird turn of events allowed me to continue as the main, and that's just thank the Illuminati for that.
Well, yeah. Praise the Illuminati. Now, I if people have been enjoying our talk today, I would like to direct them to your podcast and where they can find you and find out more about you and the way you think and all that good stuff.
They can find all the goodies. They can find all adventures. We record wherever we
Mm-hmm.
are. So we want adventures, and we set up our shop. We have a suitcase where we take everything, so you can hear us wherever we are at any time that we're in the middle of it. We just set up, record, and send you guys some new episodes. You can find all of that at Just Conversation Podcast anywhere in Apple Podcasts. You can find that on Google Podcasts, and you can find us on all social medias under Just Convo Pod.
Very nice. Very cool. So, and what kind of a person do you think that is it? What kind of a person do you think becomes interested in this kind of conversation that you and the Illuminati are facilitating?
Somebody who's looking for fun information. We like to have fun over here
Yeah.
at Naughty headquarters. We like to make jokes about things, and we're adventurous, but we also like information. We like truth. We
Mm-hmm.
like thinking. We run alone whenever we're not on a crazy adventure, whenever we're not going across the stars to find out what's happening at some foreign other part of space. We are running experiments in our labs and trying to come up with unique and interesting answers for questions and pondering things. And we like to break open philosophy books and just debate anything under the sun just to have factual information. And then we always run those experiments in our quantum computer to see what the truth really would turn out to be.
Very
So yeah,
nice.
anybody who likes to think, anybody who's highly inebriated,
Hmm.
they would definitely enjoy it. So thinkers, stoners, alcoholics.
Well, that's good. So that's good. It's I always think that the alcoholics are really just you're trying to push your brain to that level, and you're trying to find the cheat code to sort of push your brain away through your anxiety so that you can reach a certain point. And so I definitely understand that. I definitely understand somebody. But yeah, I think that you can actually reach that level just by listening and just by exploring, and you can actually train your brain to ascend by just
Definitely.
yeah,
Meditation is the most powerful thing ever created.
yeah, just mental exploration. So
Yeah. Truly dive into your own mind and understand. By the way, that's exactly where the God in the global consciousness exists. So you definitely get in contact with him. It's weird when you first come across him, but if you try
hmm
hard enough, you'll come across him. And he's everywhere all at once. He can communicate with all of us. He's kind of weird and sarcastic, but you can get there.
oh,
He will talk.
very very nice. So not met God. My boss is not on good terms with him, so I'm not sure he'd be very excited about that. But
I know that relationship. His problem is specifically Jehovah. The rest of them are fine with each other.
okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Is
Problem anytime.
anything else that you would like to leave us with?
Everybody needs to stop thinking negatively about the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and stop making up conspiracies because we are here to help you. We are constantly protecting you. We are trying our best to keep your planet functioning and not allow it to be destroyed
Yeah.
by the forces that be, which are all trying to destroy you for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So yeah, stop thinking we're horrible people. We're definitely on your side, especially the clones and the subhumans. Subhumans work for the clones. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jack. It has been a pleasure. And I'm gonna say bye for now. All right, take care, everybody. Special thanks to the Illuminati and, of course, Jack Thomas, the clone who we interviewed today. You can find Jack and his other clone friend Christine on the Just Conversation podcast. That's Just Convo Pod across all their social media platforms. If you like wild, weird, crazy conversations, you definitely have to check this out. It's amazing. But if you love the craziness, if you love the weirdness, be sure to check out HORRORGASM. You can find out more about HORRORGASM, San Diego's celebration of all things that go bump in the night, at HORRORGASMSD.com. It's an amazing festival of weird, spooky, creepy craziness, and you don't want to miss it. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be selling my weird, creepy artwork that doesn't seem to sell as well during the other times of year. And it's going to be Queen Bee's Arts and Cultural Center, October 26th. Make sure that you go to the website and buy your tickets. Our You Mind theme song, of course, is by Ethan Meixsell, who is an amazing artist. And one thing that you can do is follow us on all our social media. The links are down below, and you can keep up on the comics, the artwork, the podcast, the creepiness. I'm going to try and start a blog. I've done this in the past, and then I just lose the gumption, so we're going to see if I can stick with it this time. And you know what else? Thank you for watching. And special thanks to our Patreons, The Grammarica Show and Nikki Benfield. And you could consider becoming a Patreon for your very own self. And if you do that, you can be part of the magic. You can make it all happen here. We really do need support because this is kind of a labor of love. But if you don't feel like doing that, going to patreon.com/lucidnap, all one word, then you can leave us a big, delicious, juicy review on Apple iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us some stars, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the show. It can only get better if you tell us what we're doing wrong, okay? So if you hate the show, please vent. That's the place to do it. And if you like the show, then please let us know, because we have no way of knowing. We're just casting it out in the air and hoping somebody's receiving it, that somebody's getting into it. But yeah, so please do that. And thank you so much, everybody who tuned in and everybody who's been involved. It's been a wild ride so far, and we're hoping to bring more of this fun, crazy content to you pretty soon. All right, talk to you later. Bye.